right, 25 minutes before 11 o'clock. Thank you for tuning in. Before we get started, let me real quickly mention that the Life South Bloodmobile is outside of our studios right now here at the Paddock Mall. So if you come to the Paddock Mall, come to the entrance by the food court, and you will see the Life South bus, and they are trying to get you to donate blood for this Memorial Day weekend, because somebody's going to need it. And as a way to thank you, they have some gift cards that they're going to enter your name in for a chance to win. I'm looking at the list. It looks pretty big. We'll give you the details in just a little bit. Right now, let me say this. I was watching the news, and they were talking about breathing the air near that volcano that's going off in Hawaii right now. And one of the hazards of the steam that hits when the lava hits the salt water in the Pacific Ocean, one of the hazards is that steam, in addition to hydrochloric acid, has in it glass. Can you believe that? And if you breathe it in, it'll embed itself in your lungs, and it could kill you if you have too much of it. So obviously we're talking to Ocala, Florida, and we're nowhere near it, but we have issues here too. I don't know whether we have glass in the air, but every once in a while you'll hear some kind of an alert about the condition of the air. Usually as we get deeper into the summer is when we start to see that. Dr. Kevin Glynn is on the phone. He is a senior pulmonary physician with Scripps Health in La Jolla, California. He has treated respiratory disorders for 30 years, and he's written a book called Gasping for Air, How Breathing is Killing Us and What We Can Do About It. Dr. Kevin Glynn, it's an honor to have you on our show. Good morning, sir.
Well, good morning, Larry and Robin. Thanks very much for having me.
Oh, you are welcome. Good morning. Are you out in California right now?
I am. I'm right here in La Jolla looking out at the ocean clouds.
Yeah, when I landed in L.A. not too long ago, it looked like the dirt in the air was still there. I heard a report that the air pollution in Los Angeles was improving, but from the untrained eye, you can still see it from the sky.
You know, that's a good point. Los Angeles and California in general have probably made more progress in battling against air pollution than any place else in the United States, but we still have the worst air. And Los Angeles has been having more trouble lately. They've been blaming it on diesel fuel from all the trucks and the container ships and the various little miniature trucks that transport goods. So a lot is related to the port activity. But yeah, we're still struggling out here much more than you all are in the East.
And in Florida especially, we have this breeze that comes from the Gulf and goes over to the Atlantic, and it's almost unfair because our air is cleaned on a regular basis. Now somebody else gets our pollution. I don't know where it goes. I don't even know the science behind that. Does it just fall into the sea, or what happens to it?
Well, a lot of it gets dissipated, but it circulates around. Yeah. And we have the reverse problem in California. The air from Asia comes right across the northern Pacific and then funnels right down into the western United States, and particularly the southwest, because that's the way the jet stream goes.
And then you've got that valley right where you are, so that kind of traps it, doesn't it?
Well, that's right. And see, the polluted air then hits those mountains and it settles. And this has been known. They didn't know the science of it, but gee, even the Indians knew it before white people even came, that smog and fog and dust tended to settle in the Los Angeles basin. That's been known since antiquity, and of course now we've made it worse with because we all drive cars here in Southern California.
Yeah. You also have the indoor culprits. I mean, you see ads all the time for machines to take out the bad particles of the air and recycle the air, but because of carpeting and drapes that don't get clean often enough.
Well, yeah, there's outdoor pollution we've just been talking about, and then there's indoor pollution, and indoor pollution is no joke either. It can be found in just about any room in the house. You mentioned carpets. Newly installed carpets are they have formaldehyde in them when they manufacture them. So when you put new carpets in your house, you want to make sure that you ask the installers to to do several things, to use adhesives that emit less formaldehyde, and then ask them to lay out the new carpets and let them air out before installing. The solution to these indoor air pollutants is ventilation. Ventilation.
Okay. And do those filters make a difference?
Air filters can make a difference. There's a caveat in that, because some of them emit ozone, and ozone is irritating to the lungs too. But the filters themselves can be. In fact, I'll give you an example from my own personal experience. I have asthma, and cats bother me. My son and his wife are cat fanciers.
Oh, no.
So when I go to visit them, he and I have an agreement that 3 days before I get there, they close off the room in which I'm going to sleep, and they put an air filter in there, a high-efficiency particulate air filter, to try to clean the room up so that I cannot sneeze and wheeze during my visit.
So the relationship between what we breathe in and what gets through our lungs and into our blood system. Talk about that a little bit. Everything doesn't make it in, right? A part of our design, the human design, is that we are filters, right?
Oh, absolutely. From the nose right on down. The little hairs and then the mucus, those all, they heat the air, of course, and then they filter the air and moisten it. And it has to work that way in order for oxygen and carbon dioxide to transfer when they get down, when the oxygen gets down to the little air sacs, which are very, very delicate. And then oxygen comes in and carbon dioxide comes out.
Are we breathing air that has less oxygen in it in 2018 than, let's say, in the 1700s? Somewhere I heard a report that said the oxygen amount has decreased. Do you think that's true?
No, I don't think so. I mean, that might be true compared to 100 million years ago.
A long time, okay.
When the atmosphere was just forming. But the atmosphere may be dirtier now because of all the engines that we run, but no, it's still 21% oxygen.
Okay.
At sea level.
What is the relationship between having plants in the house and the quality of the air? What was the one plant we heard about that cleans the air? Was it I can't remember, but we've heard this every now and then. Have a hanging plant or an indoor plant, and it'll clean the air.
Mm-hmm.
Well, plants, of course, they regenerate the air because plants use carbon dioxide, and that's what chlorophyll does. It converts carbon dioxide and oxygen into sugars that plants use to live, and then plants emit oxygen. So we depend to a great extent on the existence of plants so that we have air that we can breathe. That's one of the reasons why we always try to encourage people to be green. It takes a lot of plants indoors to make a difference. I guess if you lived in an in some kind of a flower, I want to say an arboretum, but
like a greenhouse. Huh?
Yeah, you lived inside a greenhouse, right?
How about the body absorbing through the skin? Like you've got football players, hockey players. They've all got these big uniforms on, and they're playing for like 2 hours, and they're constantly sweating inside. Now, is that detrimental to their health also?
No, I don't. Not from the standpoint of oxygen. Frogs and reptiles, and amphibians and reptiles can absorb oxygen through their skin. We get it through the lungs.
So tell me how this became your life's work. Was there? Is it your asthma? Is that what got you in this direction, or was there something else?
Yeah, I grew up fighting asthma, and I can remember having to go to the emergency room in the middle of the night and get a shot of adrenaline, and it I didn't realize it at that time because I was just a kid, but it was really influencing my life a lot. And I finally decided to go to medical school, and when it came time to specialize, I decided I would specialize in breathing disorders because I really felt a bond with people that had difficulty breathing. And so I did that, and I was lucky enough to do it and had a great career doing it.
So is there anything that we can do to increase our effectiveness in absorbing oxygen?
Well, I think mainly avoid things that mess us up, like tobacco smoke would be the worst. In fact, when I was in practice and patients would come to me and they'd say, what can I do? They'd be worried about automobile exhausts or
that is a good question.
Some dust in where they worked, and I would say, let's check those out because they could be playing a role. But I'm telling you right now, the single best thing that you can do is never go near tobacco smoke, even if it's your spouse. Make them go outside to smoke.
What about the other things we put in the air that are supposed to make it smell better? We have in this very studio, we have a thing that spritzes out a smell every now and then. Is there? I don't want to turn it off because obviously it makes it more bearable to be in here, especially
smells like a locker
especially
room
with me in
it.
here. Yeah. So
those fragrances,
are they okay?
Yeah, they aren't any big problems. Every now and then you'll get somebody who's really sensitive, somebody who has bad asthma and is really, really vulnerable, or maybe has cystic fibrosis or some kind of underlying lung disease. But for normal people, those don't cause any trouble, and they do make it more pleasant.
How about people that they have animals in their house and they don't clean up the feces right away?
Yeah, that's another thing. Well, I don't know about that. I know that
sometimes mice get in
problem
houses
with animals
and stuff,
I'm sorry, pardon me, Robin?
Sometimes mice get in houses too, so it's not just domestic critters.
If the problem with let's call it domestic animals would be those that are allergic. People who are allergic to cats and dogs, those are common. Most of us don't get close enough to mice unless they have trouble. I remember when I was at the University of Michigan, a young man, a graduate student or postdoc fellow came in, and he had a problem with rats. And his research involved working on rats. And that was a dilemma for him. Should he change his area of research or somehow or another be immunized against rats? But the animals that we have get asthmatic people. Those are the ones, allergic people.
We had a nurse in the studio one time, and she was telling us that she cleans the surfaces at the doctor's office with hydrogen peroxide because bleach was getting to her. And when she said that to me, I could relate because I thought, oh my gosh, I hate cleaning with bleach. It gives me a headache, and it feels like I can't get that smell out of my nose, even if I've been gone for a few hours from the area I was cleaning. Can you talk about that a little bit? That sounds like it might be an issue, bleach, especially for some people.
It is an issue. It is an issue. See, bleach is sodium hypochlorite. It emits chlorine. Chlorine is really, really irritating. In high concentrations, it's a poison gas. In the war in Syria, where they gassed all those people a few weeks ago, you saw video clips of little kids trying to breathe and under oxygen masks. Those gases are emitting chlorine. So bleach is trouble, particularly in a closed environment. When I was in practice, I saw several maids, commercial maids that worked in hotels and office buildings that made the mistake of mixing bleach and ammonia in a bucket in a broom closet. And they irritated their lungs. They were still coughing and wheezing days, weeks, months after the episode. It was sad. It was tragic.
Wow.
So once again, the answer is ventilation.
So as a pulmonologist, you see patients who have issues that are something we caused ourselves. It's not just a birth thing or an old age thing. It's something we could have done. Maybe work at a gas station, breathing gasoline fumes. Is that what you see?
Well, gasoline fumes are drying, and they can be absorbed through the lungs. But the answer to your question in general is, yeah, we unfortunately, with the march of civilization, have made a lot of our own trouble.
Yeah.
I cover that in the book too.
You talk about burning wood and coal, like in fireplaces or wood stoves, things like that, fire pits.
That's a very good example of it. Now, we here in the United States don't have it as bad as people do in India and China, where they cook over open stoves, and those where people have lots of lung disease related to firewood. They burn sticks and weeds and animal dung and stuff to try to heat their food. And there's an entity called the brown cloud. If you Google brown cloud, you'll see it over Southeast Asia. Anyhow, we can have it here too. You have to be careful, and when you're barbecuing, you can get not just carbon monoxide, but you can get dust particles. So once again, don't do those things in a closed environment. Do them in the open, ventilation, circulate air, then you'll be okay.
What exactly does it mean when somebody says they have a collapsed lung? Do our lungs really collapse?
Oh, that refers to the situation that occurs when air leaks into the chest. The lungs sit inside the chest, and when the chest expands, then the lungs expand. And if there's a hole in the outer surface of the lungs, then air seeps into the space between the lung and the chest wall, and the lungs collapse down like an empty balloon.
Oh, wow. So how do you fix that?
Well, it happens. It's not a rare disease at all. You see it mostly in young people who are exercising heavily. You put a tube in the chest and suck out the air, and nature heals it usually in a few days. Once in a while, that doesn't work, and you have to go in and use a chemical to irritate the surface of the lung and stick it to the chest wall.
Oh, my gosh.
But most of the time, they clear up by just re-expanding the lungs.
We have beautiful springs here in our area to swim in, and sometimes when the boaters go down the springs, the gasoline motors from the boats will leave this film on top of the spring water. Is that dangerous, or does it dissipate real quick?
I don't know that much about that. I wouldn't be terribly worried about it for the lungs. Of course, it pollutes the water, but I'm not acquainted with it being connected with any kind of respiratory diseases. I don't think that stuff's volatile enough.
Dr. Kevin Glynn is with us. I want you to know, Doctor, that we are broadcasting live right now, and we are also recording this, so it will be up as a podcast later on. And by doing it live, that means the listeners have an opportunity to call in, and I'm just wondering if you'd like to take some calls.
Sure.
Okay. Good morning. Thank you for calling. You're on the air with Dr. Kevin Glynn.
Good morning. 2 quick questions, and then I'll hang up and listen. What about all the chemicals in our cleaning stuff? And I mean, the air fresheners, the carpet cleaners, the bath and body products, etc. And what about everybody's into the diffusers right now? How much does that affect our lungs? I'm going to hang up and listen.
Okay. We sort of covered that earlier. Doctor, you want to cover that again?
Well, yeah, some of those substances can be irritating to the lungs. Some of them are hydrocarbons, meaning they're in the same family as gasoline, and they can dry out the lungs, and they can be irritating to the lungs. So the answer is be careful. And if you notice any symptoms, open the windows, put a fan in there, and stop using them.
And what does she mean by diffuser? What is a diffuser?
Well, diffusing, that means it just spreads out into the atmosphere.
Okay. Well, and what about these vaping cigarettes? I see we do the broadcast from the mall, And I see young people all the time, instead of cigarettes, they have these electronic cigarettes, and it looks like a locomotive walking past the window. Is that safe?
Well, they're too new to be sure. I would say I sure wouldn't want to do it, and it seems to me that anybody who's doing it is playing Russian roulette with his lungs.
Yeah.
The theory behind it is that if you make a solution of nicotine and then heat it up, that'll be less injurious to the lungs because there's not the tar that goes with tobacco smoke. But there's other chemicals in that, and the science of it isn't all worked out yet because these things have only been in existence for a few years. But, if I were forced to make a bet, I'd bet against it as being good for your lungs.
Have different people come into your office with the same condition that they could have avoided having that condition?
Yeah, that's sad, but it sure happens. That's right. And the worst example of that, of course, is smoking and lung cancer. And sometimes it relates to jobs, and people are in a quandary because their job requires them to be exposed to some kind of an organic substance that's making them cough or wheeze, and what are they supposed to do? And it might not be that easy to get another job, and those are difficult.
Dr. Glynn sent us a copy of his book, Gasping for Air. If what you've heard is making you interested in reading the book and you are lucky and I pick your call, then you can have the one that was sent to us. So call right now and I'll kind of let the calls kind of stay in the lit stage, and then I'll pick one at random. 622-9622. So if you don't win the book, you have to buy one. And I did find it on Amazon. It's available as a Kindle, a hardcover, and it's doing really well. It's brand new, isn't it? Let me see. What date did this come out?
It came out last August, so
okay.
It'll be a year in August, right? Thank you. It was fun writing it.
One of the wonderful things about your bio is that you were recognized for your contributions as a bedside teacher. And sometimes you can have the best physician in the world, but they have very poor bedside manners, even though they're making you well.
Well, yeah, thank you. That was a great compliment, and I really appreciated that. And I think it shows the importance of bedside teaching, and there are some of us that do well in the lab and some of us that do better at the bedside.
Yeah, I think that's probably true. I think the information that you've put in the book is going to be so helpful to people. I mean, we have so many people with breathing issues. I see people sometimes with face masks on, and sometimes it's to protect other people from their cold or whatever. And in other cases, it's to protect themselves from whatever's out there. So I don't know how effective they are, but I see people wearing them. Not too often, but every now and then.
Well, yeah. Remember when they had the SARS epidemic back in the mid-2000s, and you saw people in airports in the Far East. The paper masks that really don't do very much because there are openings and air goes in and out around them. To get a good mask that really protects you, you have to have a 95, they call them 95 level mask. They filter out more than 95% of all the particles in the air. They require special fitting and filter cartridges, so they're a little more elaborate, but they work.
Well, Doctor, thank you for writing this book. I don't think we've ever had this topic. We've been doing this for 15 years, and I don't think this has ever come up. So good for you for coming up with something new. Gasping for air is going to be really important to you if you are gasping for air. What is that thing you called, Rob, when you have asthma? I think you squeeze nebulizer?
Yes.
Nebulizer? Do you cover that in the book by chance?
Yeah, right. One of the chapters is on respiratory care, which has really skyrocketed since I got into the field. I think that's one of the interesting things that made me want to write the book.
Wow.
oxygen therapy, ventilators, nebulizers, those things have all they've really come of age during my career, and I wanted to share that with the public. That's why I wrote that chapter.
More questions are coming to me, and we don't have any more time. Thank you, Doctor, for being on the air with us today. Good stuff.
Thanks very much for having me. I appreciate it.
You're welcome. We will be right back.
What do I do now? After 911, don't worry. Call Fakuri. Fakuri Medical and Chiropractic. Treating auto injuries for over 32 years. Same-day appointments, immediate medical attention, all under one roof. Don't worry. Call Fakuri. Go to bestinjurycare.com. All auto insurances are accepted. Available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week to take your call. Car accident? Don't worry. Call Fakuri. bestinjurycare.com.
Get it for less at the DIY Home Center outlet. Get top quality real wood cabinets the same or less than the big box stores are selling the cheap stuff. And that's not all. Drywall screws big box stores are $6.47 a pound. At DIY only $4.99. Plus DIY